The city of Vera was alive with light and sound. Towers of shining metal touched the clouds, and sky shuttles drifted between them like slow birds. At the heart of this alien world, thousands of species moved in busy streets. Merchants shouted in strange voices, selling glowing fruits and crystals. Drones floated in the air, scanning the crowds for trouble, and in the middle of it all, unnoticed by most, a small alien girl hid in the shadows. Her name was Kari. She was thin, her clothes torn and patched many times. Her greenish skin was dulled with dirt, and her eyes, large and golden, carried both sharpness and sadness. She had no home. Her parents had disappeared years ago, and since then, she had learned to live on scraps. Some nights she slept under metal bridges, other nights in the hollow shells of broken machines. Life on the streets was cruel. Patrols sometimes chased her, merchants struck her if she got too close, and other children stole whatever she found. Yet Kari endured. She was small and quick, able to slip into alleys where no adult could follow. She listened, learned, and survived. That evening, while the city was glowing in purple dusk, Kari saw something unusual. Near the plaza, a tall human walked among the crowd. He wore fine clothes, clean, simple, yet carrying a symbol on his chest, the emblem of Earth. Humans were rare here. They were newcomers to the galaxy. But already they were known for their stubbornness and strange sense of honor. Kari followed him with curious eyes. She had never spoken to a human before. Most aliens ignored street children. But she wondered if humans were the same. The man paused near a market stall to greet a merchant. In that moment, something slipped from his pocket and fell onto the stone ground. Kari's eyes widened. It was a wallet. Thick, heavy, filled with metallic chips and glowing cards of credit. She could see the golden edge of an ID pass as it landed just near a drain. Her heart beat faster if she took it. She could eat for weeks, maybe months. She could buy clothes, maybe even rent a small space to sleep. No one would ever know. She looked around. The human hadn't noticed. The crowd was too busy. Correa bent down and picked up the wallet with trembling fingers. It felt warm, smooth, expensive. She pressed it against her chest and took a step back into the shadows. But something stopped her. She opened the wallet, expecting only credits. But inside she saw a picture. A small image of the human with a group of others, men and women dressed formally. His face looked serious, but his eyes carried a kindness she didn't recognize from the other species. There was also a paper note, handwritten in a language she couldn't read. The fact that he kept such things told her something important. This wallet wasn't just money. It meant something. Kari stood still, torn between hunger and conscience. For so long, no one had shown her kindness. Why should she care about anyone else? Yet deep inside, a small voice whispered, "Because this is different. Because he might notice you not as a thief, but as someone who chose to do the right thing." Her legs shook as she walked back into the light. The human was already moving away, unaware of his loss. Kari ran through the crowd, clutching the wallet, and stopped in front of him. The human blinked in surprise. "What's this?" he asked, his voice deep but calm. Kari held out the wallet with both hands, her golden eyes lowering. "You dropped this," she whispered, her voice uncertain. For a moment, silence hung in the air. She expected anger, suspicion, maybe even a strike across the face like other adults had given her before. But instead, the man smiled gently. His eyes softened, and he reached out to take the wallet. "You found this for me?" Kari nodded quickly, ready to run if his mood changed. The man looked down at the wallet, then back at her. "That was very honest of you," he said. His tone carried warmth, not mockery. Most would have kept it. Kari's chest tightened. She didn't know how to answer. She simply shrugged. The man studied her for a moment, noticing the dirt on her clothes, the thinness of her arms, the wary look in her eyes. His face grew more serious, but not with anger, with concern. "What is your name?" he asked Kari. She whispered. "I am Ambassador Hale, from Earth," he said. "And today, Kari, you have done something most honorable." Kari blinked. No one had ever used that word for her before. Honorable. She was used to being called thief, beggar, rat, but never that. She wanted to leave, afraid of how strange this moment felt. But before she could, the ambassador said something unexpected. You must be hungry. Come with me. Her breath caught. Was this a trick? No alien had ever offered her food freely. Usually she had to steal or beg. Hale seemed to notice her hesitation. He raised his hands, palms open, a human gesture of peace. No harm, he said simply. Only food. Kari's stomach growled loudly, betraying her thoughts. She lowered her eyes and slowly nodded. The ambassador led her through the plaza toward a nearby eatery. The owner, seeing his emblem, welcomed him at once. Hale ordered a plate of warm bread and soup, and when the food came, he pushed the plate toward Kari. She stared at it in disbelief. Eat, Hale said softly. At first she only took a small bite, suspicious that it might be taken away. But when no one stopped her, she began to eat faster, hungrier, until the plate was empty. Hale watched silently, his eyes thoughtful. You remind me of someone, he finally said. Someone from Earth who also had nothing, but still chose to be honest. Kari looked up at him, crumbs still on her lips. Why? Why give me food? She asked in a small voice. Hale leaned back and answered simply, because you returned something that was mine. Even though no one would have known if you kept it. That matters. And because sometimes one small act of kindness can change everything. Kari didn't fully understand his words, but she felt something new stirring inside her. For the first time in years, someone had looked at her not with disgust or anger, but with respect, as she sat there, warm food in her belly and strange hope in her heart. She didn't know that this single moment, returning a wallet, would soon shake the walls of power across the city. For now was enough to feel seen, and for Hale. It was the beginning of something greater than diplomacy. It was the discovery that even in the darkest corners of an alien city, honesty and courage could still shine. The city of Vera never truly slept. Even in late hours, lights from towers painted the skies in colors of blue and silver. The air buzzed with the sound of hovercrafts, merchants, and music from different species. Somewhere among the endless noise, Kari walked beside Ambassador Hale, her steps cautious, as though at any moment the dream of being fed and safe would vanish. For Kari, this was the strangest night of her life. She had returned a wallet, and instead of being scolded or punished, she had been rewarded with food and warmth. She kept glancing at the tall human, unsure why he had done all this. Aliens, she knew, only cared for power or wealth. Hell seemed different. Hell was thoughtful as they moved through the glowing streets. He had been trained for politics, for tense discussions in grand council halls, not for quiet moments like this. Yet something about the small alien girl troubled him. He could not shake the sight of her thin arms and wary eyes. How could a city so advanced, filled with trade and wealth, allow children to starve in the shadows? Do you have a place to stay? Hale asked as they turned a corner. Kari lowered her gaze. Sometimes, she whispered, I hide in machines or old tunnels. Depends on the night. Hal frowned. No one helps you? Her laugh was short and bitter. Help. They don't see us. We are invisible. Unless we steal, then they see us. The words struck him harder than he expected. Hale had come to Vera to represent Earth, to sign treaties, to prove humanity's worth to older civilizations. But now, listening to Kari, he realized there were truths the Council never spoke of. They boasted about progress and equality, yet their cities had children like this, forgotten and ignored. They reached the tall building where Hale stayed. Guards at the door stiffened when they saw Kari. One stepped forward, his voice sharp. Ambassador, why is there a street child with you? Hale raised a hand, stopping him. She is my guest. The guards exchanged uncertain looks but obeyed. Kari's eyes widened. She had never been called a guest before. Inside, the building was bright and polished. Walls glowed with soft light, and smooth floors reflected her dirty feet. She felt out of place, a speck of dust in a world of gold. Hale noticed her unease and guided her to a smaller room where the lights were dimmer. "Warmer, sit," he said gently. Kari perched at the edge of a chair, stiff as if the furniture might reject her. Hale sat across from her. "Kari," he began, "tell me about the lower districts. Tell me what life is like there." She blinked in surprise. No one had ever asked her such a thing. At first she was silent, but Hale waited patiently, his expression calm, his eyes steady. Slowly, Kari spoke. She told him about the broken streets where pipes leaked foul water. She described the gangs that forced children to steal for them. She explained how the council sent patrols only when there was profit at risk, never to protect the weak. Hale listened, his jaw tightening with every word. "You know all this?" he asked finally. Kari shrugged. "When you live there, you learn fast. If you don't survive." Her voice was matter-of-fact, but Hale could hear the weight behind it. He leaned back, troubled. If even half of what she said was true, then the council had hidden much from him. His job as a diplomat was not only to sign agreements, but to see truth. Even when others tried to bury it, Kari noticed his silence and tilted her head. "Why do you care? You are human. This is not your world." Hal met her gaze. "Because humans know what it is like to struggle. We remember times when many of our people had nothing. We know hunger, war, and pain. And we learn that ignoring suffering only makes it grow." Kari frowned, trying to understand. Most aliens she had met spoke with pride, boasting about strength or intelligence. Hale's words were different. He spoke of weakness, as if it was something that had taught his people. "On Earth," Hale continued, "we learn to value honesty because it is rare when life is hard. You showed that today when you gave back my wallet. You could have walked away, but you didn't. That choice. It means something." Kari's chest warmed with a feeling she couldn't name. She had acted on instinct, not expecting anything. But to him, it was important. That night, Hale arranged a small room for her within the embassy. She protested at first, afraid it was a trick, but when she saw the soft bed and clean water, her protests faded. For the first time in years, Kari slept without fear. The next morning, whispers already spread. News traveled fast in Vera, the sight of a human ambassador eating with a street child was unusual enough to draw attention. Merchants whispered, guards muttered, and by noon, several council members had already sent polite but pointed messages to Hale, asking why he was lowering his status by involving himself with the poor. Hale ignored them. Instead, he invited Kari to join him at a private lunch with other diplomats. When she entered the chamber, the alien representatives stared. Some frowned, others scoffed quietly. But Hale treated her as if she belonged. During the meal, Kari sat quietly listening. The diplomats discussed trade routes, energy exchanges, and mining rights. To Kari, their words sounded like another language, full of numbers and rules. Yet she noticed things the adults did not. She saw how one alien tapped his fingers nervously whenever another spoke. She noticed which names made the room fall silent. When Hale asked her what she thought of the conversation, she surprised him. "They talk about wealth," Kari said softly, "but none of them talk about people. Only numbers. Only power." The room grew quiet. Some diplomats looked offended, but Hale smiled faintly. "Out of the mouth of a child comes truth," he said. Later, as they left the chamber, Hale spoke quietly to her. "You saw things even I did not. That is a gift, Kari." She shook her head. "It is not a gift. It is survival." But Hale only smiled. That evening, Kari returned with Hale to the plaza where they had first met. The lights glowed against the dark sky, and the crowd bustled as usual. This time, though, people pointed at them. Some whispered, some laughed, some stared with curiosity. Kari felt exposed, uncomfortable. She tugged at Hale's sleeve. "Why are they looking?" "Because they are not used to seeing someone like me walk with someone like you," Hola said calmly. "And that is exactly why it matters." Kari looked at him in confusion. "Change never begins in comfort," he explained. "It begins when people see something they cannot ignore." At that moment, a group of older children from the lower districts appeared, their faces hard. They recognized Kari and called her a traitor for walking with an outsider. She froze, shame burning in her chest. But Hale stepped forward, his voice firm. She is no traitor. She's braver than many here. She chose honesty when she had nothing. And I, a human, will stand with her. The words carried across the plaza. People stopped to listen. Some murmured in agreement, others frowned. But one thing was clear. The ambassador's actions were unusual. And unusual things in politics always caused ripples. Kari, standing beside him, realized something she had never dared to believe. Her single choice to return a wallet had begun to change. How others looked at her, and though she did not yet understand the full meaning, Hale knew the truth. This was the beginning of a storm that would reach even the highest council halls. The morning sun cast long shadows across the towering spires of Vera. The city hummed with life as traders. Diplomats and citizens went about their routines. Yet beneath the gleaming surface, whispers of last night's events traveled fast. Stories of a small alien girl speaking in the council chamber reached every corner. Kari, once invisible, had become a symbol, though she didn't yet know it. Inside the embassy, Ambassador Hale prepared for another day of meetings. He reviewed notes, memos, and diplomatic agreements. But his thoughts kept drifting to Kari. She had spoken truth in a room where lies and half-truths were the usual currency. He admired her courage, but he also worried. The council would not easily forget what had happened. Some would see it as defiance, others as a chance to humiliate him. Kari, meanwhile, wandered the embassy halls quietly. She was still adjusting to the world of soft floors, clean air, and polite faces. Yet she noticed subtle signs that life here was not simple. Some diplomats whispered behind closed doors, and guards sometimes glanced at her with suspicion. Even in a place that seemed safe, Kari understood the unspoken rule. Power always watches. It rarely forgives mistakes. Hale called her into his office. The room overlooked the busy city below. Light reflected off the metal streets, casting streaks across her golden eyes. Kari, Hale said, today you may see something few outsiders ever witness. Her curiosity piqued. What is it? The council is convening again. They have not forgotten yesterday. Some wish to silence you. Others wish to mock me for defending you. We must tread carefully. Kari swallowed nervously. And you think I can help? Hale smiled faintly. You already have. But today, your presence will remind them of a truth they cannot ignore. They entered the council hall, where representatives sat waiting. The moment Kari stepped into the chamber, heads turned. Murmurs spread through the room like wildfire. Some council members smirked. Others whispered with unease. Kari kept her gaze low, yet she felt Hale's steady presence beside her. Hale, one elder demanded, why does this child return to speak before us? We warned you yesterday. This child speaks truth, Hall replied. Truth is never bound by age, size, or origin, and ignoring it does not make it less real. Some members bristled, while others remained silent. Clearly disturbed by his words, Kari's voice trembled slightly as Hale gestured for her to speak. You asked me to come back? She said. I will speak. She straightened, taking a deep breath. In the lower districts, children like me live in darkness. We are ignored. We steal to survive. We hide from guards who do not protect us. And yet, you boast of progress and wealth. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. You call this honesty? One council member shouted. You dare accuse us? Yes, Kari replied steadily. I call it honesty, because no one else will speak, and someone must see the truth. If you cannot, then at least let me be heard. Holy placed a hand gently on her shoulder, anchoring her courage. His voice rose. Listen to her. She represents those you claim to protect, but ignore. She shows what your laws fail to see. The council fell into tense silence. Some members whispered privately, others scowled openly. Hale had expected resistance, but the reaction was stronger than he imagined. Several representatives began plotting how to remove Kari from the chamber. Guards one shouted, Take her away. Before they could move, Hale stepped forward. "You will not touch her," he said firmly. His voice resonated with authority. "If you remove her, you remove the voice of truth. If you silence her, you risk losing humanity's respect, and Earth will not be silent." The room froze. Even some of the harshest council members glanced at one another nervously. Humans were young in the galaxy, yet their stubbornness and courage were already renowned. Few dared to challenge them openly. Carrie's heart raced. She had never been in a room like this. The power, the anger, the tension, it was overwhelming. Yet she felt something she had never known. She mattered. Not as a thief, not as a street child, but as a voice that could change the rules. A few minutes passed in silence. Then one of the older council members spoke, voice cold but measured. "Very well. You may speak, but your words will not change law. You are a guest here, and the council has authority." Kari nodded, swallowing her fear. "I do not ask to change law," she said softly. "I ask that you see us. The children, the weak, the ignored. We live here in the shadows of your towers. And every day, you pretend we do not exist." Hale leaned slightly closer to her. "Speak with honesty. That is all I ask," Kari continued, telling them what she had learned from living in the lower districts. The broken pipes, the empty shelters, the gangs that forced children to steal. She described the patrols that only cared when profit was at stake, and the fear that shadowed every street corner. Her voice, though small, carried through the chamber. Echoing in the hearts of those who had grown complacent, some council members whispered angrily, calling her words lies. Others looked uneasy, their faces pale. They had never considered how their rules affected the powerless. Hale spoke next, reinforcing her words. "This child returned a wallet today that she could have kept. She acted honestly, bravely, and with respect. If this does not show you the value of truth and courage, then nothing will." Murmur ran through the hall. The council had expected defiance, but they did not expect honesty to carry such weight. After a tense hour, the council leader stood. "We will review these matters, but we maintain control. This meeting is adjourned." Hale nodded. Outside the chamber, he turned to Kari. "You did well. You were brave." Kari shook her head. "I only told what I see. You defended me. That is the bravery." Hale smiled. "Perhaps, but your honesty inspired courage in others. That is a rare gift." As they left the council building, the city felt different. Whispers followed them. Citizens who had seen Kari and Hale in the chamber spoke quietly to one another. Some expressed admiration. Others grumbled. But the seed of change had been planted. In the lower districts, children shared stories about Kari's bravery. For the first time, a small hope began to grow. Perhaps someone outside their streets cared. Perhaps someone could make a difference. Hale watched Kari closely as they walked. "You see," he said softly, "even one voice can shake a room when spoken with courage. Even a small act can ripple across the galaxy." Kari nodded slowly. She was beginning to understand. Returning a wallet had been a small act, yet it had opened a door she'd never imagined. That night, she lay in her new room in the embassy, thinking. The city lights twinkled outside the window. She could hear the faint hum of hovercrafts, the laughter of distant streets, and the whispers of those who had watched the council. She realized she had changed. She was no longer invisible, and Hale's words echoed in her mind. "Courage and honesty are gifts. Use them wisely." For Hale, the day ended with quiet reflection. He had started as a diplomat, but he saw now that humanity had another mission in the stars. Not to conquer, not to rule, but to remind others of something they often forgot: empathy, courage, and the power of a single honest voice. And for Kari, the journey was only beginning. The shadows of her past still followed her, but now she had someone who believed in her. She had hope, and hope, she knew, could change even the hardest hearts. The city of Vera had changed in ways most could not yet see. Though towers of glass and metal still gleamed under the alien sun, and streets buzzed with the usual chatter, a quiet tension hung in the air. Rumors of a street child standing before the council with a human ambassador had spread far and wide. Whispers spoke of honesty, courage, something unusual. A human who dared to challenge power in defense of a small, alien girl. Kari sat quietly in the embassy that morning, her golden eyes reflecting both fear and anticipation. The previous day had been intense. Words had been spoken that shook council members. And even some of the city's wealthiest and most influential had begun to reconsider their own actions. Yet Kari knew that true change did not come from a single speech. She had to keep speaking, keep moving, keep showing that even the smallest voice could matter. Hale approached her, carrying a simple cup of warm tea. "Kari," he said softly, "today we finish what we started. The council cannot ignore you any longer. Your courage has given them a choice. And now, it is time for them to act." Kari took the cup, her hands trembling. "But what if they refuse? What if they just punish me?" Hale smiled faintly. "Then we stand together. That is what humans do. When we see injustice, we do not turn away. And neither should you." By mid-morning, they were on their way to the council chamber once more. The guards at the doors were tense, their faces betraying unease. Hale walked confidently, Kari beside him, and the whispers began almost immediately. Some citizens followed quietly outside the chambers, hoping to see what would happen. Inside, the chamber had already been filled with council members. Their expressions ranged from irritation to curiosity, though most tried to maintain a careful composure. They were unprepared for what they would face. Hale stepped forward. "Members of the council," he began, "we have spoken. We have listened. And yet the streets remain the same. Children like Kari continue to live in fear, unseen and unheard. This city prides itself on progress, yet it ignores those who need it most. The time for words is over. The time for action is now." A murmur ran through the chamber. Some council members bristled. Others exchanged nervous glances. Kari, standing beside Hale, felt the weight of every eye upon her. She wanted to shrink, to disappear. But Hale's steady presence reminded her that she had already faced worse. One council member finally spoke, voice dripping with authority. "Ambassador, you interfere in our affairs. This child's presence is an insult to our authority." Hale's eyes met hers briefly, silently telling her to remain calm. "It is not interference," he said evenly. "It is a reminder that leadership is meaningless without justice. If you ignore your people, you invite failure. And this child, Kari, represents what your city has overlooked for far too long." The chamber erupted in debate. Some shouted in opposition, calling Hale's words arrogance. Others, however, whispered quietly, unsure of how to respond. The room was divided, and for the first time, the council could not command agreement. Kari stepped forward, her voice trembling, but growing stronger with each word. "I am only a child," she said, "and I have no power except my words. But these streets are full of children like me. We live in shadow, we hide from the patrols, we steal to survive. And yet you sit in towers speaking of progress and wealth while we suffer. I only ask that you see us, that you help us, that you remember we are here." A silence followed. Even the loudest council members paused. The simplicity of her truth cut through the pomp and pride of the chamber. Hale placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "This is courage," he said softly. "Not the courage of armies, but the courage to speak truth when it matters most." One elder finally cleared his throat. "We cannot ignore her, and we cannot ignore you, human. What do you propose?" Hal stepped forward. "I propose that the council begin reforms today. Protect the children, provide shelters, ensure food and clean water. Earth will offer assistance, but only if the council begins to act now. Let Kari's voice be the spark of change." The chamber buzzed with conversation. Some council members resisted, arguing about costs and priorities. Others, however, nodded slowly, seeing the undeniable truth. Kari's story could not be dismissed. Her words had revealed a flaw they could no longer deny. Hours passed in discussion, debate, and negotiation. Kari remained by Hale's side, listening and learning. She understood more clearly than anyone in the room that change required patience, persistence, and courage. Finally, the council leader stood. "We accept your proposal," he said, voice firm. "Immediate reforms will begin. Children will receive care, shelters will be provided. Patrols will focus on protection, not punishment. And Ambassador, we acknowledge your intervention in this matter." A wave of relief swept through Kari. For the first time, she felt that her actions had truly mattered. Hallie smiled, and for a moment, she allowed herself to believe in a better future. Outside the council chambers, the city seemed transformed. Word of the reforms spread quickly. Citizens spoke quietly, sharing stories of a human ambassador and a small alien girl who had challenged the powerful. Some laughed at the unusual partnership, but many were inspired. For Kari, the streets she had once feared no longer felt entirely hostile. She knew the change would be slow, but the beginning had been made. Hale led her to a small garden on the embassy roof. The view overlooked the city, bathed in the golden light of late afternoon. Hovercrafts drifted below, casting moving shadows across the streets. "Kari," said gently, "today you showed the council something they had not seen before, and in doing so, you reminded me why humanity travels the stars. Not for conquest, not for power, but to protect what is right and just. You have shown the same courage humans value most." Kari blinked, unsure how to respond. "I only spoke the truth," she said softly. "And that," Hale replied, "is often more powerful than any army. Your honesty and courage created change today. That is the human way, Kari. Not because we are stronger or smarter, but because we believe that every life matters, no matter how small." Kari felt warmth fill her chest. She had never been seen like this before. Never treated as more than a street child, a shadow, or a burden. Yet now, she was a voice that had moved a city, that had inspired adults, leaders, and even an entire species to reconsider their actions. Weeks passed. The streets of Vera slowly began to change. Shelters opened for children. Patrols focused on protection rather than punishment. And Kari was no longer a ghost of the shadows. She began to help other children navigate the city safely, teaching them what she had learned. Her courage became a beacon, and Hale continued to support the reforms. Reminding the council that real progress required compassion, Kari never forgot the moment she had returned the wallet. That small act of honesty had led to this transformation. She had learned that even in a galaxy filled with towering powers and vast cities, one person's choice guided by courage and honesty could ripple outward, creating waves of change. Hale watched her one afternoon, smiling quietly. "Do you see?" he asked softly. "Even the smallest actions can shape the future. You did not have to return that wallet. You chose to. And because of that, many lives will improve. That is humanity's unexpected legacy." Kari looked out across the city, golden eyes shining. For the first time, she felt hope without fear. She understood that courage, honesty, and compassion could change not only her life, but the lives of countless others. She had once been invisible. Now, she was a symbol. The city of Vera would never forget the day. A small alien girl and a human ambassador challenged its power and reminded everyone of the simplest truth, that honesty, courage, and compassion are strengths, not weaknesses, and that even the smallest voices can echo across the stars.